Let's talk about New Orleans jazz. That was at the very beginning. Many people have theorized about who started the jazz movement, but as I've said before, I don't think one person can take credit for these things. Jelly Roll Morton actually proclaimed himself the originator of jazz in 1902. He had a very strong personality and a very strong ego. He was an amazing ragtime and stride pianist and introduced swing and some complex rhythms which he called voodoo rhythms. Buddy Bolden is another name that floats to the top at the very, very beginning of jazz. He was rumored as being the true founder, but again, not one person. He was a wild cornet player out of New Orleans that lived a very wild, crazy lifestyle and burnt out at a young age. Louis Armstrong is the guy that we need to really talk about. He was a rags to riches story and a ragamuffin on the streets. When he was just 11 years old, on New Year's Day, he shot a gun into the air to celebrate, a real gun, and ended up in a juvenile home. We're happy about that because he found the cornet in his new home, and his soaring imagination just took that music and began to change improv, the face of improv, forever. He had tremendous effect on the jazz genre. What he did was he took it before improv was just short fillers in the music. And what Louis did was he took it and he made it into whole sections where instruments played back and forth between themselves, taking whole improv sections, which was a new way of doing it. He had a wonderful character and people loved him. Something that many people don't know about him is that he had an adopted son who was mentally challenged. And he adopted this boy when he was young from one of his relatives, and he took care of this boy his entire life and was an amazing dad. That's just one part of his character. Many people know him from his movies. He was in over 50 movies, and he just had this amiable personality that was hard to resist. One of his wives, he was married a few times. His second wife, Lil Harding, was also a musician, and she doesn't always get credit for all the arrangements that she did for him. So know that women were behind the scenes with many of these jazz artists. Okay, so what are the aspects to New Orleans jazz? It's hot jazz, meaning that it had high energy. It had swing rhythm. It used the jazz scales. It was extroverted. And the improvisation, as I mentioned, that Louis brought, it was a shifting between the instruments in larger segments. Today you can still hear it in New Orleans. Preservation Hall is a very famous place on Bourbon Street, which always plays hot jazz. And Frenchman Street is one of my favorite places in New Orleans where really great music is played on the streets, practically every street corner. Go there if you get a chance. I'm going to play an example of music from a piece called Hot Five Louie. And just listen to the hot feel of it and the swing. You get the idea. So how do we do this with improv? One of the aspects to hot jazz is the use of the circle of fifths, moving down by fifths. You may not have noticed, but this starts in C, then it goes to F, down a fifth, then it goes down to B flat, down a fifth, then it goes down. So actually, it could go on forever. So that descending fifth is a big deal in jazz. One of the most common chord progressions is the 2-5-1. Now the 2 is actually the 5 of 5, so we're actually moving down by fifths. So for our improv, I'm going to have you do a 2-5-1 in your left hand. If you're on another instrument, you might want to record this into something you play along with. on the C a little bit longer. We're going to use the jazz scale. No, excuse me, we're not going to do that. What they were known for is they were improvising in non-root chords. So we're going to talk about non-root chords. The D non-root chord would not have the D in it. It has the third, the fifth, and the seventh. So we're going to do that for the D chord. For the G chord, let's just stay nice and close with F, G, B, and then for C, we'll go with E, G, B, missing the C here. So the root is taken in the left hand. So now what you want to do is get really comfortable with those chords, playing them as chords and also as melodic tones. You get the idea. So when you get really good at that, you can add a few little chromatics if you want to, like it'll sound a little bit hotter that way. When you're really good at that, then try moving it to a new position. You have a whole week to practice. So try that 2-5-1 all over the piano and have fun.